We are starting on top of Chav Zayin Amid Beis 27b1. I think that's what we made up, correct?
Yeah, Amar Rabbi Asi, Amar Rabbi Yochanan.
Correct. That's what we said. All right. So here we go. Says the Gemara. Now, the beginning of this Gemara, the beginning is going to be a little difficult and not so much difficult, it's confusing. But once we get on to today's daf, it gets much more simple, especially after the new perek. And a lot of this Gemara, it's only at the beginning that it's difficult, and then it begins to repeat itself. Once it repeats itself, we're just going to quickly go through. Amar Rav Asi, Amar Rav Yochanan. Zar shestida es hamarocha, a non-kohen, a zar, that arranges the wood for on top of the mizbeach. Chayev is chayev to the death penalty. To chayev misa b'dei shemayim, to have a misa at the hand of heaven. Ketzad hu oisa. Now this is an extremely strange question. Ketzad hu oisa. What does he do? Who's the he? Who is the he? Pashtus, it means the zar, the non-kohen. Says the Gemara. Parka, he takes it apart because of his sedara, and then he puts it back together. Right, the Gemara, my hanile. What does that good does that do him? He was chayiv misa for having put it there in the first place. Since he was chayiv misa for having put it there in the first place, right? What's the difference? And he should take it apart and put it back. Says the Gemara, Elapirik Zar, the Zar takes it apart, the Sadra Kayin and the Kayin rearranges it. And here we have a Machlokes Rishonim. Rashi seems to hold that by rearranging it, in fact, he no longer is Chayiv Misa. By taking it apart, he's undoing his mistake, and he's no longer Chayiv Misa. Other Rishonim say, no, he is Chayiv Misa, but this is part of the tshuva in that he's taking it apart and putting it in. Anyway, says the Gemara, Maskef lo Reb Zera, but do we ever find one of the avodas in the of the Beis Hamikdash Shekshera Balayla, which is valid, to be done being done at night, upasula bizarre, and then but is in fact pasul bizarre, since almost all of the avodas are daytime avodas, daytime services, the nighttime avodas. Why would we say that the Zod cannot do it, a non-kohen cannot do it? So says the Gemara right away, what kind of havamin is that? What are you saying? Galoi, what are you talking about? Varei, Evarim uperodim. At night, the avodah of burning the limbs and the fats, the hectare Evarim v'chalobim, the burning of the fats and the holy limbs, right, which takes place at night, which only can be done by a kohen. So you see that the avodas, even if they're at night, after the carbon tamid shabin abayim, even after the daily tamid of the afternoon, it can only be done by a kohen.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Sure, of course.
When it says chayav, and you say it's misa b'dei shemayim, what's the difference? I know the difference, but when it says kares versus misa b'dei shemayim?
So you probably tackled this in Sanhedrin a little bit.
We did.
There are two types of misas. There's apparently, again, I'm not an expert, but clearly there's kares. Misa b'dei shemayim is actually worse than kares. It's harder to do tshuva with a misa b'dei shemayim than it is with kares. I thought
that kares was the worst because kares affects the future generations.
Right. Well, that's if you assume that's what kares means. Kares on somehow means future generations, but you can make tshuva on it. Kares could also mean the world to come and being cut off in the world to come. But either way, misa b'dei shemayim. So it's all spiritual in its nature. Somehow there's a difference between the two of them. If I'm being vague, it's because I am vague. Because
Okay, I have an article that on it, so I'm going to go back and review it.
go review it, but you'll see that there is a difference between them. But again, it's all spiritual in nature. Because the Rambam, even with regard to chorus, and I don't want to get into it because it does apply here, but when it comes to Milah, the Rambam brings a very interesting word. He says, if a boy was not Gemalit and he turns 13, and now he needs to be circumcised, he says the following words, Einoi chayiv korus ad shiyomos. He's not chayiv korus until he dies, v'hu oral b'nevi, which means that korus is not in this world, korus is in the next world. Because that's what he's saying. Einoi chayiv korus ad shiyomos. Everybody jumps on top of the Rambam. What is he talking about? Because
maybe it means that he has a chance to be circumcised before he dies, and then he wouldn't be guilty of kares.
It's exactly what it is. As long as you're oimid to be misaken, you can always fix the problem. I can't give you kares. So now others say no. The right says you're oimid b'kares, you're chayiv kares every single day until you go ahead and
Right.
Bimala. The Rambam says, because you could always fix it up, you're not even mechayiv kares as long as you're capable of fixing it up. So it's a difference in the way you think about it. But I always said, every avera you do, you could always make tshuva. Since you could always make tshuva, you could be misakin the avera. So therefore, there can never be kares. As long as a person...
Right, I didn't want to get off the topic, but go ahead.
Right. But you understand the question.
I do.
So, but that's in your question lies is the whole thing. I didn't want to get bogged down in exactly this.
All right, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry. It's that's the one problem with the Daf Yomi is that when you have
I know that is a problem.
Right.
It's true.
So that's why you have the white columns on the side of the Gemara, because that's where you're supposed to write your questions.
I do.
You see, exactly. Even though you have the question that you just asked, take a look. Right over there, I wrote a whole little thing along the side, right on exactly this. Hang on 1 second, I just dropped a whole bunch of papers. Give me 1 second. There we go. So, let's keep moving along. Here we go. So says the Gemara below, you see that the hector, chalovim, and Evarim that you do at night, which must be done by a kohen, says the Gemara, the burning of the fats and the meat is only the conclusion of the daytime service. You offered these carbon kabbanis in the daytime. You just didn't get around to actually burning them up on the mizbeach until the nighttime. But it's all a continuation. It's all a continuation of a daytime service. So pray to Gemara Varei Truma Sadeshen, but the separating of the ash, which takes place at night, and it's not allowed to be done by a non-kohen, says the Gemara. In fact, the removing of the ash. Why are you removing the ash? So that we can bring the carbon tumid in the morning. So it's really a daytime. It's a daytime avodah. If that's the case, says the Gemara, Yoma Rabasi, Yoma Rabbi Yochanan, here's the proof. If somebody washed his hands, sanctified his hands before daybreak, for the preparation of separating out the ash, Lamacha, when the morning arrives, he doesn't have to wash his hands again. 27b2, Shekvar Kiddush Mitchila Avodah, because he was Mekadosh his hands at the beginning of the Avodah. It was nighttime. It doesn't matter because it's the nighttime Avodah being done for the day. So really, it's a daytime Avodah. So says the Gemara Be'elakasha. So now we get back to our question: how could Rabbi say that a non-kohen who arranges the wood on the pier which is a service that's performed purely at night, is liable for the death penalty. Says the Gemara, Elo ki itma hochi itma. Amar Abasi, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Zo shesidu shnei gizei eitzim chayim. Hoyil va'avoidis yoimu. That a kohen who arranges the 2 blocks of wood, not all the other blocks of wood, but the 2 blocks of wood, the shnei gizei eitzim, which is particularly chayiv to misa b'dei shemayim, because it's a daytime service. Right? The Gemara maskablo rava elameyato. But if that's true, that placing the 2 blocks of wood is a daytime service, and it's so important that a non-kohen who does it is chayiv misa b'dei shemayim tiboye payis. Then it should be part of the lottery. There should be a lottery for a kohen to do the shnei gizei eitzim. And we found in the previous Mishnah that it was not part of the lottery. And for the Gemara, Ishtamite the time Rabba forgot the Brisa. Means Shazacha B'Truma Sadesh, and whoever wins the lottery to do the separating of the ash, Zacha B'Sidu Marocho B'Sidu Shnei Gizei Eitzim, is awarded with the privilege of arranging the wood of the pyre and of putting down the 2 blocks of wood to build up to what he put up on the altar. So in fact, it is part of the lottery, because whoever wins the Truma Sadeshen gets the actions. And if you remember, the reason for that was in order to make sure that the Kohanim show up on time, because they get 3 for the price of 1. Says the Gemara, are you then coming to tell me that only daytime services are the ones that are part of the lottery? Avoid this laila loy boy payis, but the night time, any avoid that has done at night is not part of the lottery. The burning of the fats, of the limbs and the fats, which are done at night, and it's part of the lottery. And for the Gemara, like we said before, avoid the Yoma, that in fact the burning of the fats and the limbs is really a continuation of the daytime avodah. And like I said, the Gemara is going to constantly now go around in a circle. The separating of the ash. Except the Gemara, in fact, the separating of the ash didn't need a lottery, a lot. But the reason why it did it is because of what happened, the Maisa that happened before. Because if you remember, that was the foot race, and where a kohen was pushed off and broke his leg, and another kohen went ahead and stabbed the other kohen. So in order to get about that, they did the lottery. And because they did the lottery, people stopped coming. So they added the 2 other avodas of the Sidur B'Marocha and the Shnei Gizrei Eitzim to make it a 3 for the price of 1. And then people started showing up. So this was all that. So it says the Gemara, L'meima de avodas yoin. You mean to tell me, therefore, that only a daytime avodah, the Shazar Chayiv Aleh Misa, and only on one on account where a non-kohen is chayiv misa b'dei shemayim, those pious need a lottery. But ein zar chayiv aleh misa. But if it's a case of a daytime avodah, but a non-kohen would not be chayiv misa, loy pious would not require a lottery. V'harei shchita, but we see this shchita bizarre is kosher. A bizarre is allowed to do shchita, and you see that nonetheless we do a lottery. Says the Gemara, shani shchita, because it has an importance. Techila savoidi. It's the beginning of the service. Without it, you can't begin. You need to shech in order to do the Kabbalah, Licha, and Zerika of the carbon atomic. So therefore, it was important enough to have a lottery. 27b3. Okay. But didn't we learn in the Mishnah? The Mishnah, it's going to be the Mishnah on the next Amid, on Chav Ches Amid Aleph 28a. The next Mishnah is going to say, the administrator, the guy running the show, says to the assembled Kahanim, go out and see if the time for the slaughter of the Korban Tamid has arrived. In other words, daybreak has arrived. Not that it's still, you're seeing only the shaft of the moon. or the rays of the sun coming up, but it hasn't risen yet. But the Mishnah does not teach that the administrator inquires about the time of the placement of the Shnei Gizrei. It seems that therefore we're not so concerned if the two blocks are put on at night. Says the Gemara, in truth, the wood has to be done by daytime. However, the korban tamid, which has no remedy if it's performed at night, if you shech the korban, if you slaughter the korban and it's still nighttime, we've got a problem. You slaughtered a korban. But the wooden blocks, if by accident you put it at night, it's simple. You pick them up, you pick them up, and you put them back down when it's daytime. So you could fix up. You could be misake. You could be misake by simply picking up the woods and placing them back down when it's daytime. Mashake and the korban tamid. Obviously, if you slaughter it when it's nighttime, it's completely no good, and the meat, the holy meat, would have to be burnt. So, once again, Rabbi Yochanan originally said that a non-kayin is chayiv misa if he arranges the wood on top of the altar. The Gemara then cited Reb Zera, who said that arranging the thing is a nighttime thing. Now the Gemara is going to give a different answer. We're going to have the exact same Gemara, essentially just coming about it a little different. We're about to repeat ourselves entirely. The Ikadiyami, Maskeplo, Rabbi Zera said, is there enough? Would Rabbi Yochanan rule that a non-kohen is chayiv misa if he arranges the fire? But you see, we have an avodah sheyesh achrei avodah that has another avodah after it. In other words, it's not an avodah tamah. It's not the concluding avodah. What do you call it? Sheyesh le'avodah. Sheyesh achrei avodah that has an avodah after it, psula bizarre, and is unfit for a kohen under the penalty of death. Okay, we're going to see that that's not the case. It's only including avodah. Says the Gemara. Now we're on today's daf, 28a. So says the Gemara, what are you talking about? Which is a concluding service, right? Despite the fact that it's followed right after it by the separation of the ash. We finished burning the heptachalovim and the we burned the fats and the meats at night, and the ashes that are created are then removed. So you see that there is an avodah that takes place after the Baramu Paradim, and still we say that it's only a kohen that can do it, and if a non-kohen does it, he's chayiv misa b'dei shamayim. And for the Gemara, no, saif avodah de Yoma. The burning of the limbs and the fats are in fact the concluding service, because of it's really part of the daytime service of the day before. You just didn't have time to finish burning it. The cleaning of the ash. So, the cleaning of the ash is a concluding service, despite the fact that all you're doing is separating out the ash. You're not getting rid of the ash until later. So it's not really a concluding service, and yet we consider it a concluding service. And a non-kohen that does it is chayiv misa. Says the Gemara, no. That's a techilas avodah de Yoma. It's the beginning of the avodah of the daytime. The Amar Rabbi Yochanan Kiddush of the Trumas Hadesh and L'macha in Tzarech V'Kadesh. If you sanctify your hands for the Trumas Hadesh, and then when the daytime arrives, you don't have to wash your hands again. Shekvar Kiddush b'tchilas avodah. Elo kosher. We still have the question that a non-kohen is liable for the death penalty for arranging the wood of the pierre, which is not a concluding an avodah. It's a middle avodah. Says the Gemara, you're right. We're not talking about the regular wood because that's only a middle avodah. It's not the concluding avodah. But putting down the two blocks of wood, that is the end of the avodah. because it's a concluding avodah. Maskef lo rava elameyato to buy a pious. Now we're repeating the Gemara. But if it's a concluding avodah, and it's also important that it has the death penalty for a non-kayin, it should require the lottery. Says the Gemara, "V'loy buy a pious." And in fact, whoever said that putting down the two shnei the two blocks of wood, does not require a lottery. But Tanya, we learned, whoever had the privilege of separating the house, as was zeicha to automatically have the arrangement of the two blocks. So says the Gemara, yes, I agree that we went ahead and we said whoever zeicha to Chumas Hadeshen gets to do the Shnei Gizayetzim, but since the Shnei Gizayetzim is a concluding an avodah tamo, it's a concluding avodah, and a non-kind that does it is Chayim Misa, it should get its own lottery. It's so important, it should get its own lot. It shouldn't be combined with the Chumas Hadeshen. After the Gemara Kedamina, we had to do that because we made a lottery, because otherwise people were killing each other and breaking people's legs. So we had to make the lottery. But then nobody showed up for the lottery. Nobody shows up for the lottery, so we have to make a 3 for the price of 1. Good. We're now on Chavches 28:8-2. So says the Gemara, do you mean now to say that a concluding service, the concluding service that a non-client is chayav the death penalty, but a pious requires a lottery? Ain't zar chayav misa, but if it's a concluding avodah, but a zar is not chayav misa, loy by a pious would not require a lot for harei shchita, but there is shchita, which is a concluding service because you finished doing the thing. So it says and a non-kain is not chayav misa. In fact, is allowed to do it. And for the Gemara, Johnny shchita to tchila avodah Yoma, and in fact, it's the beginning service. Since it has a significance of the beginning service, that's what it is. So are you saying that something that's a concluding service requires a lottery? But an avodah that has another avodah coming after it does not require a lottery. Says the Gemara, what are you talking about? It's the end of the avodah of the daytime. That's why it has its own lottery. Right, like I said, right around in a circle. What about the separating of the ash? We said in truth, the serving of the ash does not need a lottery, but we made the lottery because of what happened, because people were killing each other and breaking each other's legs. So we had to make a lottery. And then nobody showed up to the lottery, so we had to make the lottery a 3 for the price of 1. We also learned in the Mishnah, the Mishnah that we're about to learn right after this in the new parak. Go out and see him. It means about shchita. If the time for shchita has arrived, the daytime has arrived. The able zaman see the gizrei eitzim like a tummy. So you see, it can be done at night. The truth is, it has to be done by day. Half the less like the kantikatoni. The carbon tummy, which is a carbon. If you shecht it, you blew it. If you did it at night, you can't fix it up. So therefore, he went out and said, "Go see if it's time for the shchita." Half the is like the kanta like a dummy. But here with the placing of the woods, you could always pick up the woods and put them back down when it's daytime. He didn't have to say anything. We should return to you, Berishayna. We should return to you, Berishayna. We should return to you, Berishayna. And now we begin the new parak, of which we did this Mishnah already twice in the Gemara we just learned. Here we go. The administrator says to the assembled Kahanim, go and see if the time for the slaughter has arrived, for the carbon tummy. If it arrived, Harayu, the one who sees it, Barke, he would say, dawn has happened. He would say that the entire eastern sky has lit up. Ad Hebron, as far as Hebron. And he would say yes. They say, why do we need that? That after he would say the dawn has arrived, the administrator would then say, is the eastern sky lit up all the way to Hebron? Why do we need this? Because once the moonlight rose over close to the horizon, in other words, they made a mistake. And they thought that the east had lit up from the sun. And they slaughtered the Tamid. Since it was slaughtered at night, they had to take it out to the place of burning. So they needed to make sure, you would ask the questions to make sure that dawn really broke. They took the Kohen Gadol down to the mikvah. The Kohen Gadol, once the slaughtering of the carbon Tamid had arrived, the Kohen Gadol would go to the mikvah to immerse himself in the service. Okay, and as we're going to see, every case it says in the Gemara, right? They took this was the general rule with regard to the mikvah. Anybody who moved his bowels did number 2, required immersion in the mikvah to clean himself up. He had to wash away. He had to make sure he was clean. And anybody who urinated, required washing his hands and his feet in the kiyar, which stood between the mizbeach and the entrance. Okay, and the Gemara will go into this, explaining why this was all required. Okay, says the Gemara. We're now on Chofches Amid Beis, and this Gemara is pretty easy. So here we go. It says the Gemara. Tanya, we learned Rabbi Shmuel said, Barak Barake, the one who went up to check the dawn, said, Barak Barake, the dawn has begun. And now we know what Barak means. Barak actually means the dawn. So Barack Obama meant the dawn. Okay, so there you go. Barak Baraki. Rabbi Akiva Oimer, Allah Barake. Dawn has risen. So you notice the difference. Rabbi Shmuel said dawn has begun. Rabbi Akiva has a further along line. Dawn has risen. It's a little later. Nechumya ben Apakshi Shion Oimer. He says, Af Biraki bechebron. It's dawn even in Hebron, which is obviously even later. Mashia ben Shmuel Hamamuna al Payas. Mashia ben Shmuel, the administrator of the Payas, of the lottery, would say, Hey Panei Kol Mizrach Ad Hebron. The entire eastern sky is lit up as far as Hebron. Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, Hey Panei Kol Mizrach Ad Hebron. The entire eastern sky is lit up as far as Hebron. V'yotzu Kol Ha'am Ish Lamalachta, and all the people, each and every man, have left for his work. So in other words, it's a Ihachi Nagach Le'tuva. But if, according to this last one, that people are already up and going to work, it means it became very light. Why was it needed to ask if the time has arrived? It was obvious that the time has arrived. Look out the window. Says the Gemara, Lishkar Payalim Kamrina. We're telling you that it's become light enough for the employers to go out to hire workers, because by then the workers were waiting on the street corners to be hired. So it was a point, as usual, there's ethics being built into it about how one is supposed to work in a gang. Amar Rav Safra, Saluse di Avram Miki Mishachre Kaisle. The davening of Avram, which is in this case Mincha, begins when the walls begin darkening with shadows. When the walls begin darkening with shadows. If you look on the side of your Art Scroll Gemara, the left side, there's something Taisvis Yishanim, the old Taisvis. Do you see it?
Yeah.
Okay, that we're going to do the first thing here. The davening of Avram is when the walls started getting shadows. But we learned that in Perek Tfilas Hashachar and Brachis, Yitzchak Tikein Tfilas Mincha, Yitzchak was the one who was misaking the tefillah of Mincha. Shenema b'yotze Yitzchak l'soyach b'soda. And Yitzchak went out to initially daven in the field. That's when Rivka saw him for the first time. So yesh leima, the Oache shetikne Yitzchak, after Yitzchak was misaking Mincha, he would say, Gam Abram Kach. Gam Abram. It was also Abram. Kach Pirush Rabbeinu Tam. Inami Amar Rebbe de Mikol Mokkoin. Haya Omer and Abram Mitchilo. Abram, of course, davened Mincha also. Elishlai Asa Klal L'chol B'nei Beisai. But he didn't make it a rule for his whole house. Ad Shetikne Yitzchak. Until Yitzchak was misakein the afilu eruve tavshilin kayim kenabin lekama. Until Yitzchak was misakein mincha, and then Avram said, "Okay, my household will also daven mincha," because as we're going to see, Avram Avinu kept all Taryag mitzvahs, even the mitzvahs derabanan, like erev tavshilin, like the erev tavshilin when Yom Tov goes Shabbos, it's Yom Tov goes into Shabbos, and we have to make an erev tavshilin. We do, and then we're going to learn this Gemara right here. So says the Gemara, Amar Rav Yosef, Anan me Avram neikum and nimkar. We're going to go learn out from Avram. It's how we're going to learn out from Avram. Avram was so high, was such on a high level. How can we learn anything out from Avram? Amarava Tana Goma me Avram. Tana learned from Avram. And we shouldn't learn from him. The Tanya, because we learned. On the 8th day, the flesh, you should be mala, you should do the bris milah on the foreskin. Melame, we learn that the truth is the entire day is valid for circumcision. Reason that the zealous are early to do mitzvahs. The reason I'm giving the mitzvahs. Because it says Abram rose early in the morning. So we learn out the reason by giving the mitzvahs, which we apply to today, that we should try to be quick to do mitzvahs. This is what he was asking. It's not because we learn if Erev Pesach falls out on Erev Shabbos, we slaughtered the tamid a half hour early at the 6.5 hours. The current is Sheva Metzah, and we slaughter and it's often up onto the Mizbeach. Its parts are often up by the 7.5 hours. According to Rabbi Yosef, let us slaughter it when the walls become dark and at exactly midday. When the shadows start exactly at midday, why are we waiting till 6.5 hours? My cushion. What's the cushion? Number one, maybe the walls of the base of Mikdash became darkened at 6.5 hours because they were not exactly straight. In fact, the next time you go to the Kaisel Hamaravi, and if nobody's looking, look very carefully up along the wall, you will see that each stone is not flush equal. It's actually slightly off. And that's the genius of how the wall stood, how the wall was standing. They figured it out. And if you pile it up one right on top of each other, it's going to fall. If you look, you'll see that the stones are slightly indented along the way in order to make it more sturdy. Inami Shani Avram, or maybe because Avram was different, it's Tagninus Gedola Isa, because he was well versed in astrology, 28b2. He was very versed in astrology. Inami Mishum the Zokim Yeshiva, or maybe because Avram was an elder sitting in the yeshiva. So he knew, since he was what he called it, he was in the yeshiva, therefore it's unlikely that he would ever pray, he would ever daven not in its right time. This is not the case with other people whose obviously the circumstances are different. From the days of our Zaydis, of our forefathers, their yeshivas did not depart from them. They established yeshivas and they were always there. They were Eretz Yisrael and the yeshiva went with them. Go gather the elders of Klal Yisrael. The elders are the ones that were sitting and learning. When they were in the midbar, the yeshiva was with them. Avram Avinu Zokin b'Yoshev Yeshiva Hayashanem of Avram Zokin b'Avayavim. Yitzchak Avinu Zokin b'Yoshev Yeshiva Hayashanem Avayiki Zokin Yitzchak. Yaakov Avinu Zokin b'Yoshev Yeshiva Hayashanem Avayne Yisod Kovda bin Zokin. Eliezer Eved Avram Zokin b'Yoshev Yeshiva. Eliezer, the servant of Abraham, was an elder sitting in yeshiva. Shinam Nema. And Abraham said to his servants, the elder of his household who controlled all that was his. It teaches us that Eliezer had dominion over the Torah of his Rebbe, of his master Abraham. In other words, that Eliezer was his disciple. He knew all the Torah of Abraham. Who Damesek Eliezer? Omer Rabbi Elazar shedoyle umashkim interase shel Rabbi Lachem. Then Eliezer drew from the Torah of his master and gave it to others to drink, and that's why we call him Damesek Eliezer, which of course means simply Eliezer of Damascus. But they're saying over here shedoyle umashkim, who drank, who drew and drank from the Torah of his master and gave it to others to drink. Amarav, Chaim Avraham Avinu Kol Torah Kula. Avraham Avinu was Mekayim the whole Torah. Shenema Eikev Shama Avraham Bikoili, because Avraham obeyed my voice. Amalei Rav Shinu Bar Chila. Maybe it just means the Amos Sheva Mitzvahs. Maybe it just means the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nei Noach. So the Gemara, what are you talking about? This Mila. Mila is not one of the Sheva Mitzvahs. So maybe the Amos Sheva Mitzvahs full Mila. Amalei, him came, mitzvah side, lamali. Why did the pasuk have to say that that Abraham fulfilled my tyrants and my laws? Amar Rabbi Tamer of Ashi, Kayem Abraham Avinu Afilu Erev Tavshilin. Abraham Avinu kept even the rabbinical ordinance of Erev Tavshilin, because in our Torah you're allowed to cook and make other preparations from Yontif, from Yontif. Or Shabbos, it's only midrabanan that they said you're not allowed to prepare on Shabbos, on Yom Tov for Shabbos, unless you make an Erev Tavshilin. How do I know that he did this? Shenema Torah Sai, my Lord, a double lashon. Very good. Says the Gemara Vaita. Says the Gemara Vaita. Masya ben Shmuel Oimer. Who him? Yes. Who said yes? If we're saying the kohen, the observer, who went onto the roof, can it be that he dreams and he interprets his own dream? In other words, he answers his own question. What is he saying yes to? The one standing on the ground says yes. Mina Yada. How does he know the situation better than the one who's standing higher on the roof to see about where the sun is? Says the Gemara. So this is what's going on. Iba is Sema Hachtabaya Hara, the one standing on the ground. Iba is Sema Hachtabaya Igra, the one standing on the roof. Iba is Sema Hachtabaya Igra, and like this. Oma, the observer on the roof says, "Hey, the entire eastern sky is lit up." But Amalei, the one standing on the ground, asked, is it lit up all the way to Hebron? Amalei, you hit, and the other one says, yes, it's all the way to Hebron. It's the one standing on the ground. The one on the ground asks, is the entire eastern sky lit up? And the one on the roof says it's lit up all the way to Hebron. Amalei, and he says, "Hin, yeah, that's what I wanted to know." So the Gemara says, and over here we're going to finish. Why is all of this nesse that's going back and forth? Does a shaft of sunlight become confused with a shaft of moonlight? There's a huge difference. One is white and one is yellow. It says the Gemara about Tanya, Rabbi Yoma, Eini doimet tima shalavana letima shalchama. A shaft of light of the moon is not similar at all to the shaft of light from the sun. Timur shalavana misame ba'olam mikimakel. The shaft of the light of the moon rises in a column like a stick. It's straight. It's straight down. Timur shalchama machmir lekan lekan. The shaft of light diffuses here and there. It's obviously a greater light. And for the Gemara trying to debate Rabbi Yishmael, it was a cloudy day. In such a case, the moonlight bounces off the moon and spreads out. From here we learn that a cloudy day, the sun is felt in every place. If Madach, the moon's light diffuses, certainly the sun's light above the cloud diffuses among the clouds. What's the practical difference? The spreading out skins to dry, because this way you know there's a lot more, that the day is going to be a much more humid day. A woman should not knead dough on Pesach in the sun or in the water heated up by the sun, because it has too much greater chance of becoming chametz. Very good. This is where we're stopping. Amar Rav Nachman, all the way on the bottom, the second to last line.